afternoon, everybody. Who likes chocolate? I guess since the snow didn't keep you all away, this must be a really dedicated chocolate group. So welcome. We have today the chocolate lady. I was told that's what we should call her. Her name is Victoria, but the chocolate lady is here from Therapy Gardens, and she's going to talk about all things chocolate. Okay, enjoy.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Debbie. And hello, Walpole, on this snowy day. I feel like we should have actually had hot chocolate, but can't special order the weather around here, although we have been very lucky this winter. So, as was said, my name is Victoria, but Chocolate Lady is totally fine. I am here on behalf of Therapy Gardens. My official job title through my company called Cocoa Bean Town is actually something that you might not have heard of before, and that is I am what you can call a chocolate sommelier. Now, if you're familiar with a wine sommelier, as in someone that works with wine, they are not a winemaker. They are not a vineyard owner, typically. They are someone that is very educated about wine, knows how to curate pairings, can conduct tasting events on them, and is just generally knowledgeable about the subject matter of wine. I am that, but with chocolate. Now, a couple things come up when I say that to folks. First, people go, well, I know a lot about chocolate too. And that might be true, but I dare say that there's probably a lot more that you don't know, which is where I come in. But the other thing that happens is people tend to feel, once they hear what my official job title is, they tend to feel a bit of retroactive anger at their high school guidance counselor because they were not informed that tasting chocolate for a living was a viable career option at one point. And, it's not something that they have at career day, usually. But if you are feeling that frustration, please do not dwell in that emotion too much. What's wonderful about my job, besides that I get to write chocolate purchases off on my taxes, adult achievement unlocked. But the other thing is that my professional development is your reward today, because I do spend a lot of time around chocolate. Yeah, I eat it and taste it a lot, but the fact of the matter is I do a lot of other things related to it too. I talk to bean-to-bar chocolate makers, people that literally import giant sacks of beans and turn it into the wonderful stuff that we're going to taste a bit of today, and we're going to learn more about. I've been not only to places that make beautiful chocolate, like France and Switzerland, but also where it grows, like Colombia and down in South America, and seen where chocolate begins. And I've done all sorts of things in between. So I want to just kind of establish for you guys off the top of the hour here that while I have a lot of information to share, and definitely more information that can fit in an hour, but I want you folks mostly to feel that this is also an opportunity for you to kind of ask an expert. There might be things that you've always wondered about and even talked with other chocoholic friends about and gone, oh yeah, I wonder what the story is with that. Ask me. I'll settle it for you. You guys are going to be absolutely killing it at the next foodie trivia night. You're going to know everything, at least the chocolate stuff. Jeopardy, you'll know the answers about chocolate stuff. But so I have a very specialized set of skills, but in this regard, whether it's related to things that you might use to bake with, things that you enjoy, things that you've wondered about, things that you wonder about on labeling when you purchase things for gifts, all of that stuff is fair game. So I just wanted to establish that right off the bat. But I also have a question for you guys to start. And at my company, Cocoa Bean Town, which is a chocolate events and education company based in the Boston area, we do all sorts of tours and tasting events and talks like this. But I have a question that I always start any event with, and that is not a scientific question. So If you need to raise your hand more than once because you can't quite decide, that's totally fine. But I'd like to know where everyone here is in their sort of chocoholic spectrum preference-wise. So who here would say, most of the time when you go for chocolate, that you are a dark chocolate kind of person? Ooh, the dark side is strong in Walpole. Wow. My friends, nice to see you. Who here is mostly a milk chocolate kind of person? Okay, very good. And like I said, if you can't decide, you can raise your hand more than once. Sometimes it might depend on the day, right? Anyone here that's a white chocolate kind of person? Very assertive there, loud and proud. I like it. All right, we have a pretty good spread today. That's good to see. It's really funny. Whenever we do this, like I said, I always try to start off any type of event we're doing with this just to get an idea of where everyone is at. But there's always something that happens too. And this is maybe why I enjoy what I do so much, other than the chocolate, is that I really enjoy seeing how chocolate can be a sort of gateway to deeper discussions. Because we just did a little sociological experiment. And you guys didn't even realize it. When the dark chocolate people raised their hands, not only were there a lot of us, but there was a little bit of a personality that came out. And it was, boom, real chocoholic right here. Don't mess with me. I like the real stuff. You guys can't compete. I am a real chocoholic. That's how we act. The dark chocolate lover. I should know. I've been a dark chocolate lover since I was a little kid, which is not usual. Usually start in milk chocolate and then kind of graduate, right? But yeah, that's how it goes. The dark chocolate lovers, we're kind of snobby. We are. I say that proudly. There are worse things in the world to be snobby about, that's for sure. But we are very assertive, and I think part of it is spurred by the idea that we have all these health studies that keep coming out that keep saying how good dark chocolate is. And you guys are nodding. My dark chocolate lovers are going, looking all smug. Yep, that's right. We eat the healthy stuff, and that's totally why we love chocolate, because it's healthy, right? Yep, exactly. But meanwhile, the milk chocolate lovers, they were a little more quietly self-assured. They were still proud, but they were like, actually, we're the real chocoholics because we like the stuff that's the most classic and traditional and the stuff that's the most popular. And I was very glad to see that my white chocolate fans weren't actually following typically what we see, because a lot of times this is what the white chocolate people go when I ask, who's the white chocolate fan? They go, because white chocolate gets a lot of flack. And often what will happen when folks are kind of sheepishly looking around is we have some other folks in the crowd that do this. No, white chocolate is not really chocolate. Get out of here. And that's why the white chocolate fans are really sheepish, because they're all huddled in the chocoholic tent going, don't tell anyone we're here. They don't even think we belong in the chocoholic tent. So we have this sort of tribalistic thing that happens. We're all chocolate lovers, but we do divide into warlike tribes very fast. But here's the thing. I want to ask the group again. In regard to white chocolate, how many folks have heard, other than when I just said it, someplace else in your life, that white chocolate's not really chocolate? How many people just heard that? Okay. How about we settle this for you once and for all? We're going to give you the answer, because like I said, I want you to clean up at Foodie Trivia Night, win all those gift certificates to Dunkin's. But it's a good gateway question, because the key to understanding the difference between your most basic understanding of chocolate, probably the chocolate you've had most commonly, the stuff from the grocery store or the candy aisle at CVS, and the difference between craft chocolate, which is mostly what I deal with, is also going to help you understand the answer to this question. So the answer to whether or not white chocolate is really chocolate is, drumroll, it kind of depends. It's not a strict yes or no, but a lot of things in life are like that, right? Not everything is very clear cut. Actually, very few things are. But the answer to this is it kind of depends. But the thing that it depends on is a really important thing, and it's this stuff right here. Now, I'll pass this around so you can get a close-up look, but what I'm holding up right now is a chunk of pure cocoa butter. This is the good natural fat that comes out of the cocoa bean or cacao bean. The bean that is the magic bean where the story of chocolate begins. When those beans get put through a hydraulic press, this stuff comes out. And it initially comes out liquefied, because when it's warmed, it becomes very pourable and liquidy. Now, in this form, it is solid, but as I pass it around, a couple things to note. If anyone's hands are particularly warm, or you hold it in your hand or rub it in your hand, you will notice it will start to melt a little bit. And what will happen is it will actually moisturize your hands, make them smell like chocolate, which is nice. But it also will make your hands a little bit slick, so bear that in mind because we are going to be sampling chocolate later. But this stuff, when it's liquefied, it actually looks a lot like the movie theater fake butter that you get at the pump. It's awful, but it's delicious, right? Because it's not real. This stuff looks a lot like that, actually, when it's liquefied. But this is the natural fat that comes out of the cocoa bean. Now, this stuff is really valuable in a few different types of products. When we make good quality chocolate, this is a feature. And indeed, in well-made white chocolate, actually properly made white chocolate, this should be the primary ingredient. How many folks have ever had white chocolate, and after you got done eating it, you went, that was really waxy and really sweet, and I don't like that? If your experience with white chocolate has ever been that left a funny filmy coating in your mouth and it was so sweet it was cloying, like unpleasantly sweet, you probably weren't having real white chocolate. It was probably a confectionery that was mimicking white chocolate but did not contain the actual ingredients to legally qualify as chocolate. And when I say legally, the FDA actually has rules and regulations regarding labeling, which I'm going to give you the insight to tell the difference. So I'm going to pass this around. A couple things before I do. Like I said, feel free to handle it, smell it. Please don't bite, lick, or chew this. It is a touch and feel item. Though it is edible, it has been handled by many folks. So if you don't want many folks' hands in your mouth, don't do that, okay? Have to say that before everyone. You're welcome. So white chocolate that is actual white chocolate is going to be mostly that. It's going to have a little bit of milk powder in it, and it might have a little bit of something else, either a flavoring or a spice or a nut, something to constitute the chocolate bar. When we talk about white chocolate that's not actual chocolate, as I said about the FDA, which is an organization we've been hearing a lot from the past few years, but they are the official arbiters of what can be proper in a lot of food labeling, and chocolate is no exception. How many people have heard of or even had a Hershey's cookies and cream bar? What if I told you not only is that not chocolate, but if you look, next time you're at the grocery store, or CVS, or convenience store, you will be shocked to discover that they told you that ahead of time because the word chocolate does not appear anywhere on that label. Nowhere. What? I know. Some of you might reassess your chocolate prior life choices as we discuss these things, but this is why we discuss these things, so that you're going to be able to make more informed, empowered choices in the future, and you're going to know the difference. You guys are all going to see each other at the grocery store looking at your chocolate labels like, oh, you're reading? Yeah, you were at the talk too? Yeah, okay, good. But here's the thing. The reason why it's easy to misunderstand is because the Hershey's Cookies and Cream Bar, first of all, bears the Hershey's name, which especially if you've grown up in this country, you have been fed Hershey's probably from the moment you had teeth. And it's been a lot of marketing over time that the name should be synonymous with chocolate. Hershey's means chocolate in the same way Ben & Jerry's means ice cream. But what that allows Hershey to do is in certain cases have products that aren't including that minimum amount of ingredients that actually qualify it as a chocolate bar. It's not all Hershey's products that are this way, but more than you might think, but you'll know the difference now. And you'll also know the difference with, we just passed a big chocolate holiday, but we have another one that's coming hopping down the lane. Yeah. Take a look at those bunnies that come at the grocery store. This is a little game I like to play with myself sometimes, because you're going to start to notice something at the grocery store bunnies. They're always beautifully wrapped, beautiful colors, foil wrapper, very pretty, ornate. They know they're going to go in an Easter basket. However, you're going to notice something with the labeling. You're going to start reading. Crackle bunny, fun bunny, hoppy bunny, holiday bunny. What word am I not saying? So guess what that means? All those are bad bunnies. Don't get fooled by the bad bunnies. Tell those bunnies you hop over to someone else's place because you're not coming into my basket. Because those bunnies are made with wax. Paraffin is an edible form of wax that is actually a petroleum-based product. So when you have had waxy chocolate, and if anyone buys their chocolate from the dollar store, first of all, stop it immediately. But I hate to tell you, okay, dollar store is great for lots of things, like greeting cards, party supplies, yeah, but please don't buy your chocolate there, because it's not chocolate. None of it is. There is no real chocolate that comes through the door there. So this is what happens when we have chocolate that we know is not sitting right when we go to try to enjoy it. We have it and we go, oh, it's waxy, it's oily, it's too sweet, it has a weird texture, it's melting too much, it's kind of crumbly, it's like all these things, something's off. And we go, this is not good, but we don't know why. Now you know why. Now you know that all that really cheaply made chocolate is not only not real chocolate, but it's made with all this stuff that doesn't come from that beautiful magic little cocoa bean. And where those cocoa beans come from is where the story of chocolate begins. This right here is a cacao pod, okay? This is the entire fruit that the bean that we use to make chocolate comes from. It is a fruit, though the bean is technically the seeds of the fruit. So if you've ever had a pomegranate, you know, you have the little seeds that kind of gelatinous covered. Similar to that, we don't use this pod part. This has a husk that's very similar to, probably most similar to sort of gourd when it's fresh. This has been dried and painted and varnished, but if you were to pick one fresh off the tree, you would not have any interest whatsoever in eating that outside part. But what we do when this comes off the tree is cut it open. And I'll pass this around so folks can check it out. But the inside of a pod has those beans, but they're initially covered with this really beautiful, fluffy, but also kind of slimy pulp. And the pulp tastes nothing like chocolate. It tastes actually very similar to, has anyone ever had lychee fruit or lychee juice? If you can recall that flavor, you actually are familiar with something that's very close to the pulp of cacao fruit. Nothing like chocolate. Very fruity, a little floral, a little citrusy. But what that pulp is used for, because as I said, the pod husk is not usable, so they harvest these pods and immediately cut them open and take the beans out. Now, I mentioned that I have been lucky enough to travel to Colombia. I've visited cacao farms and gotten to have those authentic experiences. You can tell that I did not help harvest any cacao pods because they use giant machetes and I still have all my fingers. So, it's like as big as my arm that they use. So I was like, I will watch this part. Thank you. Those pods, they cut them off, cut them right open, scoop out the beans, and that's the first part of chocolate making. If we start at the beginning, the first part of chocolate making is incredibly labor intensive. This is going on down in the tropics. We know that cocoa doesn't grow up here, right? We can make chocolate up here, but we don't have it growing. It's actually 20 degrees north of the equator to 20 degrees south. It's anywhere that cacao will grow. So is anyone really good at geography? What are some countries that would be within that zone? Colombia, yeah, a little, okay, that it was kind of given to you, but you were listening, so that's good. Colombia, yep. Where else? Brazil. Where else? Venezuela, right? Others, it goes all the way around the world, so where else? Yes, parts of Africa. Ghana, Ivory Coast, those two countries alone are responsible for 70% of the world's cacao production. Most of the chocolate you've eaten in your life came from those two countries, and we don't hear about it. Why do you think that is? We have other areas of the world that also contribute that you would never even guess. Sri Lanka, parts of India, Vietnam, these places, Ethiopia, parts of the world that also contribute, though it is a much smaller fraction of the overall percentage, also can grow cacao and do contribute to the overall production in the world. So this is why when we talk about this idea of craft bean to bar chocolate, that's different from the chocolate at the grocery store, you will become familiar with something on labels that have place names on there. Does anyone ever recall seeing a chocolate bar perhaps that had a country name on it? Maybe it said Colombia or Dominican Republic or something. Yeah, so what they were telling you was that all of the beans in that bar came from that specific area. And if we can draw parallels to other food, I introduced myself by talking about similarities between wine and chocolate. Do we have coffee drinkers here? Coffee fans? Do we have any coffee? Because I know there are many levels of coffee fandom too. Do we have any coffee fans that get really specific about where they like their beans to come from? Yeah, it's yes, the great land of the dunks. Yeah, and they have a nice, next to the donut trees, there's the coffee, the Dunkachino bushes and things like that. So the thing about coffee that's similar to cacao is not only do they grow in similar areas, but in the same way that you can buy bags of coffee beans that will say Colombia, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, different places, and will have flavor notes sometimes on the labels, and will say, oh, if you like a fruity coffee, buy this one. If you like something that has chocolatey notes, try this one. Cacao is the same way, but we don't know that. We're not predisposed to that because all those candy bars are just taking beans from all over, and they're saying, you know what? We don't think people are that interested in the chocolate taste. We're going to put a lot of sugar in it, and it's going to be sugar forward. And then any subtleties or nuances is going to be muddled. And certainly that's fine. I mean, certainly there's a reason why kids love Halloween so much. The triglyceride level gets rocketed to the moon. But when we talk about enjoyment of food and some of the pleasurable aspects of food, one of the things that becomes a significant joy after we get out of those little years is that we're able to have a more sophisticated sense of taste. We're able to differentiate a broader spectrum of things. And actually, the scientific reason why I mentioned how I actually was a dark chocolate lover even as a kid, which is not terribly usual, and you might have that from your own experience or grandkids or kids, like you have probably seen it's not the most usual thing for kids to like bitter flavors, whether it's dark chocolate, some vegetables certainly, but other things as well. There's actually a scientific reason for that, and it has to do with a biological imperative. As a child, nature thinks you are not smart enough to not eat stuff that's bad for you, as in poison, okay? Most poisons in nature naturally have bitter flavors to them. So Mother Nature is going 5, 6, 8, 8 years old, 10 years old even. You probably aren't smart enough to not put poison in your mouth. So what we're going to do is naturally make you really object to bitter flavors. We're just going to take bitter appreciation off your palate. So anytime you even accidentally, it's going to be, oh, gross, that's yucky, spit it out. You get older, and then all of a sudden, you used to be a milk chocolate lover, and then now you're a dark chocolate lover, and you go, oh, I am so sophisticated now. We just think, oh, I am so grown up. Some people like to say, well, it's because you become more bitter with age, so that's why you like bitter things now. But actually, what Mother Nature has done is decided you've lasted long enough. You probably are smart enough now to know what is okay to eat and what isn't. You should have learned from your elders, your other tribe members and whatnot. So we are going to give you bitter appreciation as part of the menagerie of tastes on your palate. Because not only do you start liking dark chocolate, but what else do you start liking? Alcohol, very good, which is a drug, right? Coffee and tea, which has a stimulant in it. All of these things start becoming part of your food and beverage consumption. And it's one of those human experiences that most of us go through, but we don't talk about it because we all just kind of go to ourselves. We say these little funny things to ourselves. But the weird and wild and wacky and wonderful thing about food that I like to kind of think to myself about is that food is something that is a universal experience for humans, right? All humans on the planet engage with food and drink on a regular basis. However, the ways that we all do it is entirely individualistic, right? Because no two people here have had the same exact things to eat and drink their whole lives, right? If you started talking about all the different foods, yeah, there would be overlaps with some, but some people that have had grilled cheese for lunch every day for the past 30 years will also surprise you and tell you, well, one time I went on a trip to Puerto Rico and I had a goat stew on the beach. And someone will go, well, I've never done that. So good for you. But all of these things help accumulate your total awareness of food, and it helps you to sort of look at your appreciation of food not only from that sort of evolutionary, scientific, Mother Nature-based thing, but that you have control over how you are influencing your journey because you make choices every day, right? We have opportunities to try new foods. And some of us go, oh, wow, that's exciting. Yeah, I've never done that before. Let's give it a shot. And then we have other folks that might go, no, that's new and different. I don't want to try it. And that's okay because everyone has free choice. But one thing I'll say to my friends who might find themselves a little more closed off to the new experiences, as long as we're not playing food allergy roulette, because that is not a fun game to play. You don't want to guess, oh, let's see if I'm allergic to this. The thing about trying new foods, if you do find yourself to be someone that might be a little bit more resistant, I offer to you a little bit of reframing. Everything that you like was a new food to you at some point. And so everything that you haven't tried is potentially a new favorite that's just waiting for you to discover it. So if you think of things that way, there's actually a lot of excitement that can come out of this idea that there are new things that are just waiting to give us a little bit of joy, right? Because I would say for all of us, whether you were dark chocolate lover, milk chocolate lover, white chocolate lover, or if anyone, the magical fourth answer is any chocolate that's in front of me is my favorite chocolate. That is the reply I get, and that's perfectly acceptable. The thing is that whatever your chocolate disposition is, all of it happens because it makes us a little happy, right? When we go to have a piece of chocolate, it's about a little bit of joy, right? Is that fair to say? I see a lot of folks nodding. Good. Because why else? Why else? I mean, us dark chocolate lovers are very healthy, but it is a magical moment. Yeah, it really is. And science backs that up even further. But to fully appreciate chocolate, I want to take you through that whole journey. So that cocoa butter made its way around, right? Someone, okay, I'll get it back at some point. All right, just checking. To be honest, I used to pass around my cacao beans, but despite my pleadings with folks to not take souvenirs, my cup used to be filled and now it's not. So unfortunately, I'm going to leave these up here if anyone at the end of the program wants to come up and take a look at them. But yeah, I don't know why people think you don't want to eat these and you can't plant them. So I don't know. But the idea that chocolate begins as an agricultural product really gets disconnected from our brains. How many people, when you have a piece of chocolate, think, oh yeah, this started as a little bean inside a pod many, many miles from here? Those thoughts don't often occur. But I think it's really cool if we can have a full appreciation of chocolate in every sense. Not only the makers that are doing wonderful things, but thinking about the people that start that journey. Because once those beans are scooped out of that pod, and that photo went around too, did you guys take a good look at that? It's really weird looking, right? It really is amazing to think that that is where chocolate comes from. But those slimy, pulpy beans get scooped out, and the reason why, it's not only that we're not using the husk for anything in the manufacturing of chocolate, but all that pulp that's on there, on those slimy beans, they pile them up either right there on the forest floor, or they'll take them a short distance to fermentation centers, because the first step in chocolate making after harvesting is actually fermentation. How many folks knew that chocolate is a fermented food? Oh, so you learned at least one new thing today. See, we're going to balance out brain cells and have some calories too. The thing with chocolate fermentation or cacao fermentation is that this has to happen at the point of origin. Okay, it's not something that can happen in the chocolate maker's hands. It has to occur where it's being harvested, because can you imagine how difficult it would be to fill up shipping containers with this? It would be tremendously expensive, and already good quality chocolate is definitely more than the $2 or $3 that a Snickers bar is. So fermentation occurs right at the point of origin, and it occurs immediately after harvesting. Those slimy beans sit either in those piles covered with banana leaves or in bamboo boxes in the fermentation centers, and they sit for 7 to 8 days. And when that happens, all that natural bacteria starts doing its thing. How many folks at some point through the past 3 years of this magical experience of the pandemic has had their temperature taken by a ray gun? Has anyone had that done? Yeah. So they use those things to take the temperature of the cacao. They'll go past the pile of beans and go, oh, yep, it's starting to heat up, because that bacteria starts heating up the beans. And as that progresses through that week and a day, we start to actually smell a little bit of chocolate scent. That's the first time that fruit starts to resemble aspects of a manufactured piece of chocolate. The pulp actually turns a brown color, and there's a juice that kind of comes off of it that is now a fermented cacao juice. There's actually a farm in Mexico. I have not had an opportunity to try it yet because they have not been exporting it since the pandemic, but they will make cacao wine based on the fermentation of the beans. So it's not a grape-based wine. Once the fermentation is done, then they can dry the beans out. And the beans can get either spread out, sometimes just on open patios, or they'll take it to a drying shed, and it's a covered area, and those beans just get spread out, and they'll get turned over with rakes every now and then, but they have to get completely dried out because now they're ready to ship. So all of that process, the farmers are doing. When I tell you that the labor of cocoa is quite intense, keep in mind this is all occurring in the tropics, where heat and humidity are the primary feature every single day. If you're like me, the only thing that you like about humidity is that you don't have to shovel it, then you are thankful that you don't have to do that part of the process. But once that's complete is when beans can get shipped. And they'll get purchased by big names like Hershey's and Mars and Nestle, those big candy makers. Those three international companies alone constitute 80% of the world's cocoa exchange. They have a lot of power. But that remaining 20% is done by smaller companies, including fractionally what we call bean-to-bar craft chocolate makers. Now, if anyone's ever been lucky enough to travel to Europe or had friends that go, or just have had conversations with folks that are fond of chocolate and travel, you might have heard at some point the notion that you can't get good chocolate in the United States. All the chocolate in Europe is way better. It's not even worth having anywhere else. The smidgen of truth to that is that, on average, chocolate is made to a higher standard in Europe. And part of that has to do with legal minimum labeling requirements. They are better in most areas of Europe. However, that whole statement I would have to mark it with a big false, because the craft bean-to-bar chocolate movement started in the United States about 18 years ago. And the idea came from this notion that, so we have big candy companies making chocolate, and they're doing it in a way that has been done for a very long time, and it's great for mass market appeal, and it's great for saturating the market and getting candy bars on every checkout line. However, that's not the only way to make chocolate. There's a way to make chocolate that gives full appreciation to what that magic bean can do. And in the same way, if we bring it back to wine, we have this idea that, you know, you can go to Trader Joe's and get, I know it's like $2 chuck, it's not $2 anymore, but yeah, the really affordable wine that's you know, really easy price point. And it's an okay wine. And I'm not a wine snob, but it's okay. But even I know with my limited sense that there would not be a comparison to be drawn between some Trader Joe's wine and, say, a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne, right? They're both wine, but they're very different kinds of wine. They're made in a different way. They have a different intention behind them. They have a different sort of quality control. And so in that same sense, we have these two worlds in chocolate. You have your mass market candy bars, But then you also have what would be the fine wine of chocolate, a craft chocolate bar. Now, that brings me to price point. Folks will say to me when they start warming up to the idea that, okay, there's a whole world of chocolate that I haven't explored yet. This is exciting. Tell me more. Well, it's about $10 more per bar. Oh no, why would I do that when I can get a Snickers bar for $3? Well, all right, there's many reasons, not all of which we'll get into, but I'll present you with this sort of idea. If your Snickers bar or Milky Way bar is, $2, $3, and it's going to be a $10 differential to a craft chocolate bar, where else is the difference from the everyman category to the luxury category of a product only $10? It's not in cars, it's not in wine, it's not in high heels, it's not in jeans, it's not, I defy you to think of something where the only difference between the everyman category and the luxury category is only $10. So something to consider when you also think of the idea that of those two products, the everyman product is usually also engineered to not make you feel satisfied until you've had a massive amount of it. Whereas a craft chocolate bar, you have a piece or two and you go, wow, that was some chocolate. So this happens in food a lot. I am not a registered nutritionist and I am not the best eater. Certainly the past 3 years have been an adventure in comfort eating. But I will say that it's interesting once you kind of become aware of this idea that a lot of our indulgent food is specifically engineered to make you not want to stop eating it until you've eaten a ridiculous amount. I'll give you an example. How many people like Pringles? Pringles, yep. What's the Pringles marketing slogan? Once you pop, you can't stop. They are telling you straight up, we have made this potato chip in a way that will make you not want to stop eating the whole tube until it's gone. We're telling you straight up. And that's fine. Pringles are delicious. I don't buy them simply because I know once I open the tube, it's gone. They even have the commercial now where like folks have their hands stuck in the tube and they're just living that way now. I mean, it's really kind of actually a little bit terroristically bizarre when you really come down to it. It's like they're suggesting that you should live your life in a almost handicapped fashion just to enjoy the potato chips. It was an odd meeting to suggest that commercial, I think. I would have liked to be a fly on the wall. But that's just an example of this idea that we've gotten a little off track in our consumer habits with food, thinking that higher value only ever means having a lot of something, right? That you only have a good value if you have a big pile of something. So when you buy the after holiday candy and you've gotten it 75% off, you feel really great because you've gotten a ton of stuff. But how good quality is some of that stuff is certainly up for debate. So I would suggest for folks that are interested in this sort of opportunity to explore a world that you might not have even been aware of before you walked in the door today, is to consider that craft chocolate not only allows you to have a better quality item at the end of the day, because craft chocolate is not using paraffin and edible wax, and it's not using corn syrup sweeteners, it's not using flavorings and extract, and it's also doing something that you guys are going to get to experience when we pass around the samples. But amongst all those places growing cocoa beans in the world, just like in wine and coffee, we have flavor notes that get ascribed 2 different origins, there are flavor notes that are undesirable in cacao. Okay, there are ones that are wonderful, like fruity, earthy, smoky, nutty, but there are also ones that are moldy, wet hay, horsehair, yum. No, not yum. Yucky. There are ones that are undesirable. Those beans still get sold on the market, but they're not sold to bean-to-bar craft chocolate makers. They're sold to Mars and Nestle and Hershey because they go, you know what? We're going to add so much nougat and caramel and corn syrup to these candy bars that no one will detect the moldy notes by the time we're done with it. That's what they're deciding for you. And I'm not going to disclose that. That doesn't help their profit margin. But a craft chocolate maker that you can support as a small business, because they are all small businesses, another win, right? We're all looking whenever we can to support small business. Those bean-to-bar chocolate bars can have 2-3 ingredients, tops, some of them. You can't have a bad bean as your starting point if you only have 2 ingredients. If you have a moldy bean, you can't only add sugar to it and it's going to be acceptable. That's not going to happen. So if a bean-to-bar chocolate maker can dare to make a good quality item that has so few ingredients, you know that the level of quality control started with where they got their beans from. It was even before they started handling it. They worked with their farmers, they worked with their bean brokers, they sourced the best so that what you got was the best. I think that's worth $10 more. But also consider that those bars, because they're going to be more satisfying, they're going to last longer. You're not going to polish off a whole bar in one sitting. I mean, every now and then we have a bad day. No judgment. It's been a hard 3 years. But for the most part, you're going to feel really, really satisfied in a smaller amount because it's not fake stuff. It's not flavorings and extracts and artificial things. So consider this, ruminate on it, kind of reflect on it. Like I said, it's a sort of thing that I dare say when you leave the program today, a couple things will kind of roll around. You will start looking at labels differently on your chocolate products. And I will tell you this too, it comes up at the grocery store more than just the candy bars. It also comes up down the baking supply aisle. It comes up down the cereal aisle, and it comes up down the granola bar aisle. There's a lot of things. They'll do tricky things, even if they are not leaving the word chocolate off. They'll do tricky things like they'll add a Y, so it's chocolatey. Watch out, that's not real. If it says chocolate flavored, watch out. You will start, and you're going to feel really cool because you're going to know the difference. Because at the end of the day, if you have favorites that are, you know, old candy bars and things like that, enjoy them. Still find your nostalgia, your joy out of them. But my point is, when I share this information, is that I don't think a big candy company should be telling you what to enjoy simply based on, well, we've saturated the market and it's the easiest thing for them to find, so that's what they're going to eat. I think you should be empowered to know the difference, because at the end of the day, as we all established, chocolate brings you joy, if it makes you happy, if it brings you a little bit of stress relief, then you should be able to get that in the best way possible. And if it turns out that after today, maybe you do try some chocolate bars that you never dared to try before based on this new information that helps you appreciate things in a different way, maybe you do find a new favorite. And how thrilling is that? Because it's a new spark of joy. And I just think that's a wonderful thing. So we're going to pass around some chocolate samples. So I have 2 that are going to go around. We'll do one. First of all, I want to say to folks, I hope you did come for a little bit of outside your comfort zone chocolate, because I brought some adventurous things today. Not really weird, like there's no like dried squid chocolate or anything like that. Sorry? No mold, no mold. So the first one that will come around is a dark chocolate that has a golden spice blend in it, okay? And the golden spice blend is going to be really similar to, do we have chai tea drinkers? Anyone that likes a chai tea sometimes? Yeah, you're going to feel some similar things like some cardamom and cinnamon and nutmeg, a little sea salt to enhance it a little bit too. Also a little ginger. And it's a 70% dark chocolate. And Michael, my assistant here, he'll bring one around and help you out, and the other I'll pass on its own. So that one, if you could. Yeah, if folks could be a help by, if you could just if you'd like to sample a piece, just hold your hand out so Michael can drop it in on that side, and then this side, if you can just help yourself. So the, I'm watching you. So this chocolate is from one of our New England local makers called Lake Champlain Chocolates. Has anyone ever been up to Lake Champlain? Yeah? Oh, last time I did a program, they were like, you don't need to pass them all out. Everyone can help themselves. Trying to adapt to them. Can I help? Yeah? Okay. So Lake Champlain Chocolates is based near Lake Champlain in Vermont. They are a small craft bean-to-bar chocolate maker and also chocolatier. This, for anyone that likes vocabulary words, there is a technical difference between a chocolatier and a chocolate maker. If you guys already got some, we want to make sure. This is the same one you already had? Yeah, I just want to make sure we have enough for everyone before we do double dipping. Sorry, here. We'll start this back here. Would you mind? Thank you. Thank you for so much. I appreciate it. So, technical difference between a chocolatier and a chocolate maker. A chocolatier is actually someone that you're more likely to have in your local community that makes filled chocolates. So they will do bonbons and truffles and molded chocolates and things like that. And they are someone that usually starts with what we call, pre-made chocolate couverture. So they actually don't start with the bean. They're starting with pre-made chocolate that they then create fillings and centers and will be making those sorts of pieces. That's what a chocolatier is. A chocolate maker is actually someone that starts with the bean. And it's a much bigger investment in equipment, so you're much less likely to have a chocolate maker near you. But we are very lucky that we have quite a few in Massachusetts. The next chocolate is actually going to be one of those. No, it's a different one. So that I'll introduce that now. So she has also a container she's going around with one. Yeah. So for the next chocolate we're going to come around with is a Massachusetts maker that is based in West Bridgewater. That's actually a dark chocolate that is not as dark as the prior one. It's a 55%. But it has an interesting what we call inclusions, and those spices that were in the other one, that was also what we call an inclusion bar. Inclusion. Thank you so much. Actually, do you want to? Thank you so much. Take an extra piece for yourself. The inclusions in this one are really fun and dynamic, and I hope folks will be as excited to try it. It is lemon, ginger, and black pepper. okay? So and for folks that are uncertain of the black pepper, it is towards the end of the taste, and it is only a slight warming sensation in the back of your throat. It is not what I would call a spicy bar, and I say that as someone who is not a spicy food eater. My family background is Irish and Polish, and so people that just boiled their food to death. So I don't have a good appreciation of spiciness, and I think this bar is really fun and exciting. Equal Exchange, as I said, one of our Massachusetts makers, they focus on 3 different sorts of products that are all agriculturally based: coffee, tea, and chocolate. So all of these things, as we understand when we have an agricultural ingredient, is very important to have farmers that are paid fairly, and you might be able to tell from the name Equal Exchange. Equal Exchange makes it a part of their business model that not only are they making those good quality products, but they are telling you straight up that we very much make sure that our farmers, everyone we work with, is paid fairly. So whatever you're able to enjoy of theirs, know that they are doing right by everyone who's involved in the process, which I think is a wonderful thing, and top of all the things that we can enjoy about well-made chocolate, to know that no one's taken advantage of along the way, I think is just an added layer of appreciation. Thank you to my assistants. But first of all, I'm curious to hear any thoughts or reactions to either of those pieces of chocolate. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, it's very, and it has distinct layers, right? Because the lemon is in there too, and the ginger. To be honest, that bar I've had a lot of fun with tasting for folks, because they'll say to me, "Oh, I don't know if I would have picked that on my own, so I'm glad that you helped me go outside my comfort zone," which is thrilling to hear. But the other thing, I don't know if anyone's been getting into it. It's kind of been a thing on Pinterest and the internet, and also businesses have opened up. Anyone really into charcuterie boards, like cheese plates and stuff? That bar is excellent to put on a cheese board, because it works really well if you also are open to trying a little cheese and cracker with your chocolate. Might sound strange, but I've suggested it to folks, and they go, "Oh yeah, you might know what you're talking about." I go, "Thank you." Phew. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if I had you guys eat a cacao bean, you would not be happy with me, because it's not pleasant on its own. There's no sweetness. Unlike the pulp that came out of the fruit, the bean, being the seed, is very bitter. I don't know if anyone's ever accidentally bitten like an apple seed. You get that really bitter sort, because there's chemicals in it too, natural chemicals. The bean is not sweet. So when we talk about percentages in chocolate, what that's telling us is if you have a 70%, 55%, 80%, 30%, whatever it is, that percentage is what came from the bean. So if you have 50%, that 50% of that bar is made up of ingredients from the cocoa bean, and the rest of it is the other stuff. Now, the rest of it can be a few different things, because if it's dark chocolate, we know there can't be milk in it. Legally, you can't add milk to a dark chocolate and still call it dark chocolate. Milk would be part of the remaining percentage if it's a milk chocolate. But when we have inclusion bars like this, also part of the 100% composition is inevitably going to be what those inclusions are. Lemon, ginger, black pepper, other spices, nuts if you like nuts in your chocolate bar. So what you can be assured of is that the higher the percentage, the less room for other stuff. But if there are other things named on the label, like a bar that has things like lemon and ginger, know that that will also be a significant part of what you're working with. So that would be going back to the difference between a chocolatier and a chocolate maker. Chocolatiers are much more common, and they can be high quality, but we don't typically refer to them as a craft maker because their role as a chocolatier is not so much, they don't make chocolate, they are creating fillings and melting pre-made chocolate down to make bonbons and truffles and molded chocolates and other things. And a chocolate maker is going to be someone that starts with the bean, and usually they make bars. They don't go so far as to make the little filled pieces. But we do have some in Massachusetts. I mentioned Equal Exchange that we sampled out. Some other craft chocolate makers for folks if you want notes. Good Now Farms is an excellent one based in Sudbury. They have a store locator on their website. They are actually, if you want to like start at the top, set the bar high. No one? Oh. All right. They are the current winningest chocolate maker in North America at the International Chocolate Awards. Okay? In Massachusetts, we're home to this. Good Now Farms. Good Now. Yeah, one word, Good Now. They're actually on Good Now Road in Sudbury. Good Now Farms. And they have an e-commerce site, so you can order direct from them. They'll ship. Essentially, everything will come overnight because we're all in Massachusetts. But also, they have a store locator on the site, so you can see, oh, is there anyone near me that's selling them? Usually, it's gourmet shops. Sometimes Whole Foods will have them. I've seen also some wine shops are starting to have little chocolate sections now. But they are excellent, excellent. Actually, just got an email. I did this program at the Salisbury Council on Aging a few weeks ago, and I just got an email a couple days ago from someone who said, I had to tell you I've already placed my second order for Good Now Farm. And I don't get a commission. It's just like they're wonderful people making good chocolate, and I am glad to spread the word. We have some others that are smaller. Taza Chocolate in Somerville is another one. They've been around a long time. Folks might have heard of them before. They do Mexican-style craft chocolate. But I'm also happy to help. Actually, for folks that are interested, I do have cards for Cocoa Beantown up here. If at the end, if anyone wants to grab one, you'll have contact information. You can send me emails. I can send you links and recommendations. Just because some folks are heading out, I will take more questions, but I just did want to say thank you to everyone who came today, and I hope you enjoyed the class and that you're leaving with some new knowledge that will help further your chocolate appreciation. It was lovely to be with you this afternoon. But for folks that care to stay, I will take absolutely more questions. Thank you. Thank you.